Greetings, everyone. Welcome to the Wednesday, May 28th, 2014 episode of Free Webinar Wednesdays. This is Eric Cook with WSI Internet Consulting, where we work with businesses and organizations on helping them better understand and leverage the power of the Internet as a strategic business tool. You can learn more about me online and WSI at www.poweredbywsi.com. Back in the saddle with me this week is my good friend and Free Webinar Wednesday partner, Mr. Jeff Simpkins. Jeff, say hello to everybody out there in Free Webinar Wednesday world.
Greetings, everyone. This is Jeff Simpkins. I'm with Community Bank Consulting, Inc., and you can learn more about me and Community Bank Consulting, Inc. online at www.communitybankconsulting.com.
So how the heck have you been, my friend? It seems like it's been forever. It's only been 2 weeks. But in internet years, that's like a year or something like that, isn't it? Every 2 weeks is a year, or something crazy like that.
Probably so. It depends on how many things Google have bought in the last few weeks. Google has bought.
Yeah, I don't know if you caught it at all, but speaking of Google, they announced that they actually made an update to their logo, and all they basically did was they adjusted the kerning between the G and the L, and they had some before and after animated GIFs that basically showed how they just bumped one up and bumped one down, and it was like really, really minor, but it made the news, and everybody's talking about the new Google logo, and I think they just did it because they wanted to get some press and have everybody see that they made just a minor little shift to the logo, which was pretty crazy. But it's when a company like that does anything, blows its nose, it seems to make press, which is kind of funny. So I don't know. Did you catch that? Did you catch that by chance?
I did not.
You did not. Let me see, and maybe those of you that are joining live, if any of you can find a quick link to that before and after Google animated before and after logo, shoot it to me. I was off on holiday or vacation, depending on what area of the country or the world you're in, and I listen to a lot of podcasts, and I'm a very big fan of the TWiT network, This Week in Technology, and particularly the This Week in Google, which has got Leo Laporte and a few other folks that are very Google friendly. And one of the things that they do, though, is they refer to their live audience as the chat room, and every once in a while when something comes up, they'll throw it to the chat room and see if the chat room can find a solution and come back, and they have a few more thousand people than what we do, certainly, but I figured I would take that strategy to see if anybody that was listening live might be able to find the Google logo before and after that we could share. So we'll see if anybody can research that for us.
Huffington Post link in the question box.
Let's take a look. Look at that. Excellent. Let's take a peek here and see if we can check out the before and after. Thank you, Kia. See, we have our own little chat room. It's not as big as This Week in Google, but it's still productive. So, so I guess this would be probably a good time for me to cover housekeeping items, as we can see with the contribution from our friends that are watching live. We do like interaction, so if you haven't found it yet, you can go ahead and submit questions, comments, or hyperlinks to sites that we're asking for on the chat feature there, and that way it'll come to us. And let's see here. There it is. You have to watch very carefully. The G and the L, the G scoots over and the L drops down a little bit. Do you even see it, Jeff? How many people think that's worth an article on Huffington Post and lots of others? So look at what we did to our logo.
Honestly, I don't see it.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, before and after. So anyway, but when you're the size of Google, I guess even when you make a little small change like that, you certainly, I guess, get noticed. So, but anyway, we do use the chat feature, so feel free to communicate back to us with questions, comments, or hyperlinks, and also today's show and all shows are recorded and will be made available at freewebinarwednesdays.com once the show is over. We're also starting to put those up Actually, you may or may not have caught this, but we're starting to put those up actually in YouTube. We used to use Vimeo, and for occasional video posts, I will still use Vimeo because it gives me a little bit of password protection for some videos that we want to keep private and some others. But YouTube has removed what used to be a long-standing limitation on video length, and we can now post these full-hour sessions right directly up into YouTube, which makes it kind of nice to put there. And you know, whether you use Vimeo or YouTube or any of the other video services, it'd be interesting if we had Lou Bortone back with us, our video expert, and he could provide maybe some commentary on one versus the other. But we're starting to put information directly up into YouTube. So I see we just got another link shared with us in the chat window as well.
And so I actually did notice the change, and I'm wondering if perhaps this was an April Fool's joke, if it were April Fool's.
Yeah, you would think so. But this one kind of goes back and relays the history of Google. I know a lot of design, just talking from a general website design perspective, a lot of sites are now going away from even the contoured look and feel to the flat design. Jeff, I know you're an iPhone guy, and you've got the latest OS that went to the flat logo design, which is much more of a, I don't want to say plain look and feel, but it doesn't have the rounded contours and the edges and the beveling and the drop shadows, like I think was all the rage, you know, for several years actually. And if you were to take a peek at Google's current website, you can see that, you know, even what they're doing now is just plain, very much like the iOS apps, without drop shadow, without the beveling. So many of you are probably saying, well, why the heck is this even important, and why are we talking about it? It's a good question. But I think the design, at least from a web development perspective, is the trend in the industry, and it's whether Apple led it or other companies, but the flat design is one. Now, whether or not the kerning with G and the L really is significant in the eyes of newsworthy content, take a look at this before and after. But, you know, moving to much more of a flat design, and kind of interesting to see how the site has grown up from when it was created to where it's at now. And so, anyway, so with that,
Eric,
Google.
One thing I want to mention, I see that we have at least one person that is dialed in using the telephone. Just be aware that the default phone number that is provided is a number in Canada. So if you are in the United States or another country and don't have a North America calling plan, you may want to click on the audio section, click on additional numbers, and look up a U.S. telephone number. I know a couple people, including me, have gotten surprise phone bills between $20 and $80 because they
how do you know that, Jeff?
Canada.
Yeah, most cellular plans, unfortunately, don't come with international or at least North American calling. And now, one of the ways, and this probably seems like we're turning this into a little mini show of This Week in Google, but one of the ways that I have found to get around at least the Canadian, when I have to call Canada, because I call there quite often, is if I'm on my mobile device, I use Google Voice, which its predecessor was known as Grand Central, and I've been a customer, which is basically gives you one number to use across all devices. You can take multiple numbers and have them fed directly into that. So whether they call you at the home or the office or the cottage or your mobile, you have all of that ring directly into one location. But you can set up Google Voice if you're using it. It's a free service. You can set up Google Voice to be the outbound calling number for your mobile phone. And you can have it always default to Google Voice, never default to Google Voice, or require you to make a selection every time you make a phone call. And I have it set to the
Android
last.
feature, right?
Well, I don't know as if it works the same way on an iPhone, but I am definitely speaking as an Android guy. So if anybody out there is using Google Voice on an iOS phone, you know, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but at least on my Android, I set up Google Voice, I tie it to my account. Every time I dial out, it asks me, do you want to use Google Voice or do you want to use your regular phone? And when I call domestically here in the States, I'll just use my phone so that it shows my cell phone number as the outgoing number. But if I have to call Canada and I'm using my mobile phone, I pick Google Voice. And what that does is I call Google Voice first, and then Google Voice connects me to the number. So the person on the other end in Canada, for example, will see my Google Voice number. They won't see my cell phone number. But because I've only called Google Voice, and then Google Voice offers North American calling as part of its plan, I'm not charged for a cell call from the United States into Canada. Now, it doesn't work the other direction. If I'm in Canada and I originate a call that goes back to the States, I'm still dialing a Canadian exchange on a Verizon kind of, network switch, so I'll get dinged international rates. But if I'm calling here from the States into Canada, I can use Google Voice. And as long as I remember to hit the right button, it gives me the ability to call my friends in Canada without having to incur hefty outbound toll charges for my cellular service. So I see we've got
Gunnar,
a few comments. Yeah.
Yep.
Go ahead.
Gunnar said he uses Google Voice on his iPhone and he has to select the app to dial using Google Voice. He says he doesn't believe it integrates as seamlessly as Android, and I agree with that. I don't use Google Voice anymore, but when I did, I remember the integration being much less robust than with the Android.
Yeah.
And then, Eric, do you want to bring up glance.net, the link that Sean shared?
Yeah, let's go ahead and check that out as well. So,
and somebody else pointed out Skype. Skype is an excellent way to have phone numbers in all sorts of places.
Yep. Actually, when I was on my vacation, we took a cruise, and while we were on one of the little islands, we stopped at a little bar that had Wi-Fi, and I was able to get on their Wi-Fi, and then I used Skype to actually call back to the States. And we took our niece and her friend, and I let them call back home and talk to their mother and father. And so, but Skype certainly was a great way of doing that, and did that for free. It was all just voice over IP as long as I had a Wi-Fi connection. So I will admit I'm not that familiar with Glance. So I don't know, Jeff, if you've ever played around with this, or maybe Sean, who posted the original link, would be interested in sharing some thoughts on this. But looks like this has got some co-browsing, screen sharing, and some other ways. I know there's another service that I'm using similar to that called TeamViewer, maybe, which I've actually installed the agent on a lot of my friends and family, mostly family, and by family I mean parents and in-laws, because TeamViewer has a very, very small footprint, but a way for you to remotely connect to computers as well. And so we'll just kind of pull that one up here as an option. But I don't know, Sean, if you're interested in kind of posting any other additional information about Glance, but yeah, I'm gonna just go ahead and post some information.
I'm chuckling. He says I don't work for them, but it's pretty solid. It's like you and I say all the time. We don't work for Google, or we don't work for.
We don't work. We don't get commission. Although if anybody would like to pay us to talk about them, I don't think Jeff or I would turn that down.
You're saying Glance is like GoToMeeting or WebEx, but it pulls right from the browser window.
Oh, very cool.
So I use RingCentral for my business phone service, and I will be up front and tell you, it was a nightmare to get set up. Their technical support is based in the Philippines, and oh man, their support is awful. But once I got it set up, it's awesome. The pricing's great. It includes the voice over IP feature. So when I was in Europe, I used the voice over IP on my iPhone to make calls, and depending on the quality of the internet connection, they were pretty good. And it's got a GoToMeeting type feature on it as well now. So that's another option that's pretty cost effective and their bundles include a toll-free number. I know it's toll-free in the U.S. I'm not sure if it's toll-free in Canada, but the calling plans do include all of North America and all U.S. territories, states and U.S. territories.
Yeah, very cool. Well, it seems like it's kind of evolving into a little bit of a communications discussion, so I'll toss one more into the mix. I think maybe I've mentioned this before, but if not, we've actually moved over to ooma.com, and they're starting to do a lot more advertising. I'm seeing some commercials where the Ooma device kind of jokingly says, you know, how about a neck massage, and, you know, oh, that's funny, I don't have hands, or something along those lines. But we actually picked one of these up for my parents because they travel to Florida in the wintertime and didn't really need to have phone lines in both places. And so with an Ooma device, you pay like the $99 for the device itself, port your number over, and then all you're responsible for paying on a monthly basis is just your basic taxes. And they have some premium plans that get you three-way calling and enhanced voicemail and a few other services that I use, but certainly my parents didn't need to have that sophisticated. All they wanted to do is make sure they could still pick up their telephone and make a regular call versus using their cell phone, and it just uses your existing internet connection. The thing that I like about it, at least for our business, is if I know I'm going to be off-site for an extended period of time and where I'm going to be is going to have an internet connection, I can go and I can pull my Ooma device and take it with me in my phone and plug it in wherever I'm going to be. So if I'm heading up north to the cottage, I can take it and plug it into my network connection up there, and then my phone rings exactly the way that it would ring if I were here back at my home office. And you know, nobody really is the wiser. I've got much better call quality because I'm using the actual hardwired internet connection as opposed to my cellular signal. It's a little cumbersome because I have to remember to take all of the components and put them into baggies and carry them with me, and it'd be nice if you could just buy a secondary item that shares the same number, but that unfortunately doesn't happen. But for $99 one time, most landlines now, I think the cheapest plan that you can get for a traditional landline is probably close to $30 or $40 a month. So when you figure you're paying probably $6 or $7 a month in taxes, and that's about it. It's a pretty good solution. So if anybody's looking for good Christmas presents for you know, parents or friends or anybody that doesn't necessarily need a landline but maybe would still like the convenience, this might be a good fit. There's our TV ads. So yeah.
I used to carry Ooma at Costco. I'm not sure if they still do, but if you're a Costco member and are interested in that, check it out at Costco.
Very cool, and you'll probably get an even better savings there. I do know Ooma also, you know, kind of tying it back to our Google Voice conversation, they also, I think you have to go with the premium plan, which is like $9 a month more, but even still you're paying less than $20 a month for all the stuff. It supports Google Voice integration, so that, you know, so when somebody calls my Google Voice number, it can actually go here as well. So that makes it pretty handy. Cool.
I actually heard one of their ads on public radio this morning.
Ah, there you go.
I think they don't call them ads there. They call them sponsorships.
Sponsorships, yes, exactly. So, well, that was a little bit of a communication tangent, but good. And I know we've got a lot of regular listeners that, you know, either are entrepreneur or solopreneur, run their own business, or maybe have a bent for technology and gadgets, and some of these we've talked about before, but it's good to refresh, and some of these are brand new. I'll tell you, I've not heard of Glance, and I'm gonna check that out. So we appreciate Sean for sharing that and putting a ton of really good information. So be careful, Sean, you might be called upon to be a co-host someday. You keep sharing good information like that, we might put you to work. So
Eric, I've got a topic that I'd like us to put out to our audience. And Sean kind of touched on this, but you know, both of us use GoToMeeting and GoToWebinar, which most of the time works pretty well. Sometimes it works really well, and sometimes it sucks. I'm kind of interested in hearing from our audience what services they're using, like GoToWebinar, GoToMeeting, that they're having good results with. So we can just put that out there for a few minutes and see if something comes back.
Yeah. Well, there were a few that that Sean had put in that I'm going to just kind of quick take a look. Log Me In, and some of the others are more a little bit service related. I do know, and yep, Gunnar picked up on it. One of the services that I know some other consultants and even some other businesses that I've actually done work with, they've actually said, well, go over here, is join.me. The only problem, and whether, I don't know if it's a problem or not, but the only issue that I have with Join Me is the last couple of times I've used it, it requires you to download a little program that gets loaded, and you use it to connect, but it puts it in your persistent startup menu. And every time I booted my computer up, it tried to launch Join Me. And I didn't really like that because I'm not always using it, so I have to uninstall it, and then I have to reinstall it whenever I want to use it again. It's a pretty small file, and it doesn't take a long time to download, so it's not like it's a real big inconvenience. But you know, I would have, and maybe it's changed because I haven't used it in a while, but that was the only potential negative that I had, and I don't know if anybody has had something similar to that experience, but it seemed like it wanted to creep into areas of my computer and stick around a little bit longer than what I wanted it to. You got any experience with Join Me, Jeff?
I've avoided it like the plague based on your feedback.
Yeah.
See, I listened to you.
Well, that's a good thing. That's a good thing. So let me just see here.
I used to attend a number of meetings with companies that used WebEx, and I've never been crazy about WebEx.
Yeah.
I would take GoToMeeting and GoToWebinar over WebEx any day, to be honest.
Yep, I would agree. Now here's one that Sean shared, and it's called ClearSlide. So let's take a look at me. Now we do have some people that use Join Me, and they use it a lot and they like it, so that's great. You know, a couple of the other things is we take a look at ClearSlide. Here's an option. They've got a free trial, and you know, this may be something present anywhere. It looks like the mobile capability, some alerts. So you know, so that may be one worth checking out. I don't know. Do you remember we had a gentleman join us from a company called Brainshark? Do you remember that webinar, Jeff?
I remember the name of the company. I don't remember the product.
Yeah, I don't think it's as live real time as maybe what some of these others, but what Brainshark, and then I think they actually had a smaller version, My Brainshark, and maybe they've discontinued that version. But the My Brainshark, this is where you could create an online video presentation and send it to somebody, and with a paid plan, you actually got viewer statistics. So for example, if you're trying to engage with a prospect, or you want to send somebody some information but you can't get them on the phone, or can't get a one-to-one conversation, you can send them some information and put that together. I think I actually used My Brainshark for a couple of free Webinar Wednesday presentations that both of us were actually gone, so I did a pre-recorded My Brainshark and posted that up to free Webinar Wednesdays. But the platform will actually communicate back to you and say, you know, hey, Jeff Simpkins is watching your video right now, so that as a sales professional, it would give me the ability to know that you're checking out my video, and then I could time a follow-up call to you when My Brainshark sees that you're done watching the video. So it gives me a little bit better timing in engaging or catching you when you're at your desk. So a little different than the online real-time type stuff, but that may be one to take a look at.
So Ken Lewis posted a question and said he's looking for a virtual platform to provide training for clients worldwide with 1 to 10 attendees and affordable. Citrix does have a platform that's specifically for training. you want to bring up the GoToMeeting website, we can point that one out. The
Yep.
the keyword Ken is affordable. It's pretty pricey. I think it's called GoToTraining, if I remember correctly. Anybody has any suggestions specifically for training, if you'll type them in the chat box, we'll share those.
So there is the GoToTraining, and just out of giggles, we'll click on Buy It Now, and we'll see what affordability means when it comes to GoToTraining. So, yeah, $149 a month for 25 attendees. So,
yeah, I consider that pretty pricey.
Yeah, so not exactly an inexpensive alternative. So
Gunner's mentioned Adobe Connect a couple times. Is that a platform you've used? I seem to remember you talking about it.
Well, I did look at that as an alternative when I was kind of getting a little fed up with GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar. The thing that GoToMeeting, GoToWebinar has that still hasn't been implemented in some of these others, I really like Adobe Connect based on the platform and its shareability. I think the interface is really easy. It's a really light installation. There's nothing really required on the user or the visitor side. The downside with Adobe Connect is you have to use a third-party voice service, whether it's voice over IP or standard telephony, and we still have a lot of people, you know, when I do training, particularly with clients, a lot of them still dial in through telephone and get access, and I do a lot of recording of the webinars as well, and so synchronizing the audio file, bringing that into the video file and merging those and then providing one output, I'm sure it can be done, but GoToMeeting unfortunately has spoiled me because everything is all in one. They provide the phone number, even if it is Canadian based, thanks to the location of our corporate office with WSI being headquartered in Toronto. But it includes that voice over IP, the telephone number, and the actual video all under one platform. So I've shared that with them and indicated I really wish you guys would come up with some sort of a telephony audio feature, and it's not something that they have not heard before, but I don't see that has actually happened. So you never know.
There have been times that we've really struggled with the recording feature on GoToMeeting and GoToWebinar, but of late it actually has been pretty good, hasn't it?
Yeah, I think it's been pretty good. Now that we say that, the little Citrix gremlins are going to start coming in, and you know, I'm sure they're going to figure out a way to make us eat those words.
Gunnar mentioned Google Hangouts for training. I know some folks use that for live meetings and things like that.
Yep. Well, I guess, you know, Uber Conference jumped up at me, so that was one that I wanted to mention, and we can come back to that. But Google Hangouts and the other service, we've talked about Skype from a kind of a voice over IP type thing, but Skype, I just got notification they had me update my Skype client for group conversations, and I don't know if that was just a Mac only or if it's Mac and PC. Used to be able to do minimal group conversations, but I think they've enhanced. I've not tried it, but you know, any of the services now that provide online chat are now starting to try to figure out ways that they can bring more people in to try to integrate and get people to do, you know, the conferencing and the talking and the conversation right directly through the system. So Google has actually taken the Hangout, which, you know, you can install the app on your phone. It's got a little bit of a kind of an instant messenger chat feature. I know they had talked about trying to get that to actually be the replacement for your native text messaging app. Probably easier to do that on Android than it is on an iPhone. I have tried that myself, and I ended up going back to just my native text app because it didn't work as well. So I keep those separate, but I do have some clients that I'm connected to through Google Plus, and we'll have conversations with them back and forth through Hangouts. So that's a good solution. And you can easily initiate a video conference and a phone, kind of a voice call through the Hangouts. One of the things that Google has actually done to try to take Hangouts to the next level is a service called Helpouts. And I'm going to just wing it and see whether google.com/helpouts is there. Okay, redirected me. And if you haven't heard of this, I think it was released probably 6 or 8 months ago, if I'm not mistaken. But what Helpouts does is it takes the concept of a Hangout, which is kind of like a video where you invite people in and you all converse and chat, but it works to organize and categorize different areas that you may need assistance from an expert. And you can see you get, help from an expert over live video. And so you can go into the system, and if you're interested in cooking tips or your scrapbooking or your gardening, or you've got questions on how to take wallpaper off, whatever you may have a question on, you can actually go into Helpouts and go through the community and find somebody that has put a Helpout page together that maybe is an interior designer or a home remodeler or a chef. And you can set your computer up, and they can actually be right in the kitchen with you going through stuff. And you basically use your Google Wallet service to pay, and you get charged either on the session or on a per minute basis. And it gives you the ability very effectively and inexpensively to hire experts and have them with you, so that you're not just reading messages off a message board or watching videos on YouTube. You're actually getting the expert right there interacting with you. I've not tried it yet, and I'd be very curious if anybody in the audience has played around, or if this is news to you guys, and maybe you didn't even know that this existed. But they're building a little micro community economic ecosystem to make it, possible for people to share their expertise and monetize that, at the same time helping other people. So did I mention this to you before, Jeff, or is this the first that you've heard of this service?
First I've heard of this service.
Yeah. So we'll be curious to see if anybody has used this or aware of it, or if this is new, or if it's something that you've just heard of. Is this something that you would actually consider using? So, if we were to type in, let's say, cooking a turkey, pretend we're going to go back in time. Here's a very well-known business putting together a Helpout, offering it for free. Obviously, they'd like you to buy their turkeys, but Caribbean glazed chicken, duck, or turkey, $30. They'll spend 45 minutes with you and walk you through the authentic Caribbean flavor of how to cook that. So you can go through and you can see that there's a little bit of a social rating system going through, allowing the people that have participated to rank them, much like what businesses are doing now in their Google Plus pages or in Yelp or Foursquare or other sorts of review sites. So you can see what people are saying about them, and is Ludwig Bezzi a good person when it comes to cooking? Well, one person has said so far, and he's willing to do it for free. So if you need help cooking that turkey next Thanksgiving, hop over to Helpouts, and you can wow your in-laws. Not that I would be the one cooking it, but yeah.
Take a glance at the chat box. There's a couple things in there I think we haven't looked at yet.
Alrighty, so we talked about ClearSide and Join Me, Skype, Adobe Connect, BrightTalk. I don't think so. Let's pop over and check out BrightTalk, shall we? I'll assume there's 2 T's. If not, we'll put a 1 T in there. So.
Just while you're looking that up, Sean commented that Lowe's, the lumber and hardware store, has an extensive library of do-it-yourself projects that include the shopping list of items you need to pick and pack when you're at the store to build the project. lots of DIY videos along with it. That's pretty cool.
Yeah. They're actually building their, you can sign up for an account and you can kind of put your home into Lowe's and you can register what faucet you use, you can register what towel holders you have, the tile, the carpet, so that anytime you need something, you have that as an inventory. You can just go to Lowe's, they can pull your profile up and they can go in and say, oh, I see you're using a Kohler faucet model, blah, 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 here's the washer set that you're going to need to keep it from leaking. So they're getting the customer to actually input the information that makes it a stickier relationship, because if you put your inventory of your home in and Lowe's knows that but Home Depot doesn't, how likely are you going to be to go to Home Depot to get something? Unless there's a significant price difference, you're probably going to be less sensitive to price and more aware to the service and convenience that it's going to create for you. An interesting concept, and if you think about that in other industries, even from a banking perspective, to kind of throw Jeff in my kind of past is, what type of organization knows more about you than, maybe your physician, but your financial institution, knowing where you shop, knowing what you purchase, knowing what your spending patterns are, what your phone bill is, because all that runs through, thinking of creative ways that you can leverage that profile, that big data knowledge, which is something that Adam Broadway talked about in a couple weeks ago when he talked about his Desks Near Me, and the Near Me system is leveraging that big data graph of where information's at and who's doing what and how to bring all that stuff together. So anyway, we're on Bright Talk, and I don't know as if this is the one.
Lowe's corporate headquarters is about 5 miles from me, and I've had a chance to talk to some of the folks that work with them. And Lowe's is very, very, very interested in big data. So I can see how they would tap into that, tell us about your home, and we'll help you concept.
So it looks like Bright Talk almost looks like a Blog Talk Radio.
Yeah,
where you can go in and maybe this is a little bit more kind of video training on demand, almost like a SlideShare, Blog Talk type thing, where you can actually go through and you can replay a presentation, and so this might be something kind of fun to pick around. So we'll just kind of keep walking through. We've got a little bit of a grab bag today, but this is kind of cool. It's been a while since we've done just an Eric and a Jeff show, and it's always fun to get some good audience interaction, so we appreciate everything. So Google Hangouts, we've got that. What's that?
Did you, there's 2 more listed. Did you look at Fuse.com and or BrotherCloud.com? Fuse, I think I've used before, F-U-Z-E.
Some fusers. I know we recognize Evernote. That's on actually one of my little chit-chat items if we have time to get to them. But yeah. So fuses is certainly one. My suspicion is everybody that's attending live is probably jotting notes and going, oh great, now I've got to spend time doing research on all these to check them out. So if there's some sites that you find that are kind of cool, definitely let us know either through a comment on our blog or through our Facebook page. After the fact, if you get a time to kind of hop in, I'm also going to check some of these out myself. What was the other one? You said it was Brother Cloud?
Yep, BrotherCloud.com.
Okay. Not to be confused with BigBrotherCloud.com.
Gunnar said brighttalk.com/channel/5131 will give you a view of the corporate channel that stores webinars. Oh, so that's Brother, the printer company.
Oh, that was...
Yeah, that was Bright Talk.
I'm getting my URLs mixed up.
So, Brother Cloud no longer. Let me try it on my machine.
So, online meetings, OmniJoin web conferencing from Brother. So it looks like they've got...
oh yeah,
whether that's something
company.
Yeah. Yep. And so it was brighttalk.com/channel. Let's take a look at that one, shall we?
Sure.
Okay, so there is Bright Talk and contact customer service care best practices. So yeah, it looks like it's just kind of a category with the customer care. But yeah, so if you're looking to learn something new, this would probably be a good spot where you could spend quite a bit of time gathering some information. It looks like CCNG Management, with the branded presentations that they've got, they're putting quite a bit of information on here related to this topic in particular. So, you know, they're differentiating themselves with a consistent look and feel. Each one of these webinars is about a half an hour long, which is a pretty good length for quick and easy digest. So, yeah, kind of cool. The one that I pulled up that I didn't get a chance to talk about, but I wanted to just mention it, is a service called Uber Conference, and they've got some Google Voice integration. They have a conference call service that you can use that doesn't require any PIN numbers, and they've also, I think recently, yep, there it is, provided the ability to share your screen. So I don't think it's something that you'd want to do kind of in an en masse type webinar. But I use Uber Conference quite a bit when I want to pull 3 or 4 people together just for a quick chit chat, and I can give them my Uber Conference number. They just dial it and it connects. If you've not used Uber Conference before, if you join the conference before the organizer shows up, one of the cool things is they've got kind of a custom on-hold music that kind of is a little folksy song about somebody joining a conference and the person's not there, and it's kind of a neat on-hold option to the traditional dentist office music that listens, or that you have to listen to when you show up. But if you've got an Uber Conference account and you've got it connected, you can get an idea of who's actually doing the talking, and when the conference is over with, it actually provides you a report of who actually did the most talking, dominated the conversation, which usually is me. But you can have it record the session, and it's a nice little way of, you know, having more of a voice conversation. But the screen sharing is a nice feature that I think is, I've not tried that yet, but I use the conference calling feature all the time. So very cool. Good. Well, we've gobbled up quite a bit. I know one of the other services that you talked about, Jeff, from a customer relationship management perspective, is a service called Insightly. I'm going to go ahead, keep an eye on the chat room in case there's anything else that comes up, but I'm going to go ahead and open up that site, and maybe you can talk a little bit about what Insightly does, how it integrates, how you found it, what solution it's providing you, how you're using it, et cetera, et cetera.
You know, I think I probably found Insightly by browsing the Google Apps Marketplace.
Okay.
I've gone through a couple CRMs. You and I both were using, what's the name of the CRM we were using? I think you still use it. Really
Contactually?
Service, yeah, Contactually. Contactually is an awesome service in many ways. One of the issues that I was running into with Contactually was I had about 6,000 contacts, and the service just couldn't handle that number of contacts. It was bogged down. Yep. I've talked to them, and I hope to get to start using it again, but as of the last time I worked with the service. It couldn't handle a large number of contacts. So I was looking for a replacement solution. Insightly has a free plan. I think you can have up to 2,500 records. So a record would be either a person or an organization. And just been really pleased with the way it works. It's got a task feature. I'm not crazy about the task feature. You can't integrate that with your Google Calendar. I have a really hard time with most task features. So that doesn't mean it wouldn't work for you. The contacts I like a lot. You have the ability to put lots of individual information about a contact in, and then you can link them to an organization and have very different information with the organization. Another feature that I like that I haven't seen in the really cost-effective CRM solutions is you can link any person or any organization to any other person or organization and indicate what their relationship is. So I'll give you an example of the way I use that. I have a business partner that does a good bit of marketing for me when they market to banks. When I have a bank that is a customer of this company that's doing marketing for me, I will link the bank to the rep that is responsible for managing their relationship and to the company. So when I look at either the bank or the company that's doing the marketing for me, I can see both of them linked to one another. So it's very easy to build any type of relationship. The other way that I'm using the linking feature that I have not seen in another CRM solution that I've used other than a really high-end solution like Salesforce. And in my book, Salesforce is just way, way, way too expensive for almost all small businesses. But as all of you that work with banks and are in banking are aware, there's a lot of consolidation going on. So one of the ways that I'm using the linking is when banks merge, I can indicate a relationship of merged, and when I look at any of the parties that have merged, I can see the bank that they used to be, the bank they became. I can link holding companies to organizations and so forth. Another feature, and by the way, Insightly is $9 per user per month, or if you go with an annual plan, I think it comes out to $7 per user per month. But one of the other features that I really like is the opportunity or sales pipeline feature. It's got a really nice actual pipeline that you can build in. You can link to products and services, so it's very easy to track all of the information about the sales process. Everything that you put in Insightly will generate a unique email address. So if I am communicating by email, I can BCC either into an opportunity, I can't remember if I can do that for an organization or a contact directly. But if I email to my general Insightly email address, it will pick up the organization and the contacts that are included in that email, and it will link it to their contact records. The other thing it has is it has a project management, a pretty simplified project management feature that's built into it, but I actually do use that for tracking client projects. So I found that it's got what I think are some pretty robust features for the cost. It's got a very good import-export feature. I actually exported all of my information from Contactually and imported it back into Insightly. Had very, very good results with that. Haven't really gotten into using reports that much yet. But if you're on a paid plan, there's also some good integration with Google Apps for Business and Google Calendar.
Wow.
So that has
cool.
been my experience with Insightly.
Yeah. Other than the slowness or the bogging down of Contactually and the number of contacts, because you and I have talked about that, and I'm actually in the same boat where it just has seen very, very laggy to me, so it's been frustrating to get in, although I think Contactually, like you said, is a great platform. I think they just need to work on their ability to handle multiple big contact lists. Are there any functions within Insightly that you are seeing that don't exist in Contactually or some of the other systems? And you've had experience with Salesforce, and that seems to be the granddaddy of all CRM systems. But you're right, it does come $100 a user per month versus $7. But anything that this platform is doing that you've not found in others or does a little bit better?
Well, let me answer your question like this, and I'm not going to specifically answer what you asked initially. I'm going to go back and talk about Contactually a little bit. Contactually, in terms of just keeping in contact with prospects, clients, people in your network, that type of thing, I don't think there is a better solution. And
right.
I've got two issues with Contactually right now that I would love to see them resolve. The biggest, of course, is the latency, the slowness of the product when you've got a large database. The other is I feel like their pricing plans have gotten out of line with what their competitors are charging. I actually have talked to them about that, and they came back and said, well, what if you get this much value? And I made the point, well, if people never try your product, then you're going to miss out on a lot. But Contactually does a better job of integrating with Gmail. It does a better job, Gmail or Google Apps for Business. It does a better job of integrating with LinkedIn, Facebook, and some of the social networks than any tool I've used. So I am very, very hopeful that they resolve the challenges that I have with the product so I can start using it again. Having said that, for me, Contactually, you're pretty much limited to just using it as a tool for keeping in touch with people, keeping leads warm, generating new leads, and things like that. With Insightly, it does a much better job of allowing you to track very in-depth communication and link relationships of organizations. So I would consider Contactually to be probably the best tool available to small business for keeping in touch with individuals. I would consider Insightly as a great tool for keeping in touch with organizations, individuals within the organizations, and projects and sales opportunities around that.
Yeah.
Let's see, we've got a question. Share issues you've experienced with Contactually. Sean asked that, and we've pretty much been upfront about our issues with Contactually. It's just latency. Like I said, I think my database is about 6,000 contacts, and there have been times that it has been so slow that I could initiate a search, walk away from my desk, come back, it's still not working. There have been issues that it's been so slow that it's timed out. Aside from that, that's it.
Yeah. The biggest challenge that I had with Contactually, and this maybe gives you another idea, what I like about Contactually is they've created these things called buckets, and you basically take your customers or your client list or your contacts and you assign them to buckets, which if you're using Google Apps is very similar to a category or a tag that you may have already assigned to them. And when I merged all of my contacts into Contactually, I had a bunch of different categories or groups, I guess is what they call them in Google Contacts. But I had a bunch of groups from all the different conferences that I went to, how I met people, and it brought all those people over as individual buckets. And when I tried to go in and reassign, so maybe I've got 250 people that are part of a certain bucket that Contactually has created for me based on the group, and I want to remove that bucket from the system or assign them or merge them into someplace else because I just want to create one conference contacts because those are the people that I met at conferences and maybe I'm not as interested in knowing which conference I met them at. I would go in and I would flag those buckets, and I would try to select all, and it wouldn't give me the ability to select all 2 or 250 of those names, so I'd have to go 50 at a time. I would go through and submit the request to have the buckets renamed, and it didn't appear that it worked properly. And I've talked to them about it, and we've documented it, and they're aware of it, just like Jeff said. If those things got fixed, I think Contactually is probably one of the best keep in touch platforms that I've used. It has a nice integration right within Gmail itself. So while I'm creating a message to somebody, I can go in and say, oh, Jeff's not in a bucket, so I can add him to my free webinar Wednesday bucket, or my strategic partners bucket, or my nice guys that live in North Carolina bucket, whichever I want. I can go ahead and put them in right from Google, and the Gmail service will communicate with Contactually and assign them to that bucket. And then each bucket you can assign different rules to say, for the nice guys that live in North Carolina, I want to make sure I connect with them at least once a month. And Jeff mentioned the integration that it has with LinkedIn and Facebook and Twitter is, even if I don't email Jeff, but we share a conversation on LinkedIn, or I comment on a Facebook post, or we mention each other in a tweet, Contactually recognizes that as a connection within 30 days, and I won't get the reminder that says, hey, you haven't talked to Jeff in 30 days, because even though it hasn't been an email, it knows that we've communicated on Facebook and LinkedIn or Twitter. So that's a really nice feature, because in today's day and age, your communication doesn't just take place via email. It takes place a variety of different ways. There's clients that I communicate with almost exclusively through Google Chat and Instant Message and LinkedIn communications, and very rarely do we send emails back and forth. So hopefully that kind of gives you a little bit more information about kind of some of the beef that we've got with Contactually. But it's not really a surprise for them. So
I hope they'll get things cleaned up, because I've had very, very candid conversations with their president, and I mean, he seems genuinely interested and engaged.
Yep, I would agree.
You're gonna pick up on Gunner's question there?
Yeah, and it's hard to believe. Jeff and I were thinking of all the different things we wanted to talk about, because sometimes when we have a Jeff and Eric show, we want to make sure we've got conversation topics, and we never really have much of a problem, even though we worry about it. But we're at the top of the hour. So the last item that Gunner poses is the utilization of the pseudo, and I like how you've used that word, CRM feature within LinkedIn. If you're not aware, within LinkedIn, you can go into the individual contacts that you're connected with, and you can go into the contact info. And that gives you a little bit more information related to how you know individuals, where you met, if you want to follow up with them in a day, a week, a month. And it will also, if you connect it to your other accounts, it will give you a little bit of a running history of other correspondence that you've had. One of the things that I like that I don't know if it's because of that connectivity, but LinkedIn will also send you an email, and if you have somebody's name in an appointment or you've emailed them, LinkedIn in its daily summary will come back and go, looks like you had a conversation with Jeff Simpkins today. And if I'm not connected with Jeff, it'll give me his profile, because it uses his email address that was attached to the invitation that was on the calendar, and give me an opportunity to go, oh crap, I thought Jeff and I were connected because we've been talking, and maybe I need to fix that. So that's where I like the CRM integration within LinkedIn, because it proactively just makes sure that whoever I'm already talking to, it's a reminder, because sometimes we just assume that we're already connected to these people through LinkedIn, and you can hop in, generate an invitation request, and make sure you customize that and personalize it, so don't accept the default, put a little personal note in there to differentiate yourself. But I don't know, Jeff, have you used the CRM feature in LinkedIn much?
Yeah, I use it. I opened my contacts to LinkedIn, integrated it out of Google Apps for Business, and it's fine. I like the fact that I have it. Life would not end if I didn't have it. I agree with you.
Yep.
It's kind of interesting seeing the daily summary that you get. You get reminders of people's birthdays and work anniversaries and things like that.
Yep.
So, it's just another tool that's nice to have. is it going to be the only CRM you can use? Not in my experience.
Yeah, I agree. It helps increase the functionality of LinkedIn, but I don't think it's going to take the place of an Insightly or a Contactually or any other more formal CRM. But if you're in LinkedIn, it's nice to be able to note that, because you probably have that information stored somewhere else. How did I meet Jeff? How did I meet Gunnar? How did I meet Sean? You're going to have that somewhere, whether it's in Google Contacts itself or in a service like Insightly. But you can also put that there, and it just saves you from having to leave LinkedIn to go someplace else, which I'm sure is what their whole plan is the longer they keep you in LinkedIn, your eyeballs are looking at them and their advertisers, the better off they're doing. So, cool. That brings us to the top of the hour. So we have gobbled up 60 minutes very quickly. Jeff, any other closing thoughts, or we'll just kind of table this for our next time around?
This is good. I actually picked up some new tools that I want to look at. So thanks to all of you in the audience for participating.
Yep, absolutely. So good. Well, that puts a bow on what was a very fast-paced and time-warped free webinar Wednesdays. But like we said, it was good to be back in the saddle again and see everybody, even if it was virtually, and appreciate all the comments. We usually get a good handful of comments and feedback, but this one I think crushed it with regards to feedback and ideas and thoughts. So very, very good audience participation. Give yourself all gold stars for today. So with that, we'll bring this to an end. We'll look forward to seeing you next Wednesday and every Wednesday here at freewebinarwednesdays.com. Check the archive on the website, and be sure, if you're not a fan of our page, hop over to facebook.com/freewebinarwednesdays and give us a thumbs up. Until then, have a good week, everyone. Bye-bye.